Now let's talk about Outrun, which is an old Sega arcade game that came out in 1986 and now lives on numerous platforms, including the Switch as part of the Sega Ages collection. The regular eShop price is a bit high for an old title at $7.99, but sometimes it does go on sale for more than half off. In any case, the premise of this racing game, or should I say driving game, is simple. Players need to beat the time limit in each area in order to advance to the next one, otherwise the old game over screen appears. Unlike virtual racing, there's no actual race with placings for each racer. Instead, the point is to simply keep beating the time limit, with the extra vehicles on the track acting as obstacles that get in the way of that goal. So one needs to think about his way through the traffic rather than always hold the acceleration button. But that is part of the fun of playing a driving game such as this one. There are two ways to navigate the traffic a little easier. Players can either slow down on the turns or shift into a lower gear, which also causes the player to slow down since they can only go a lower speed with that lower gear. But if that time limit is going to get beaten, players cannot remain on the low gear forever. They need to know when to switch between low gear and high gear, as well as slow down on the turns by either braking or letting go of the accelerator. For a game that is only about beating the time limit in each environment, there is a lot of thinking involved in how to beat that limit. As a tip from someone who probably should not be giving tips on Outrun, use the low gear when stuck in traffic behind other cars, and that will prevent your vehicle from hitting someone from behind without letting go of the gas. Despite the lack of actual racing, the game holds up well. It is fun to beat the time limit and experience driving the next area as a reward. Crashing does get frustrating at times, but it only adds to how good the reward feels for unlocking the tracks. The fact that players need to think their way through each area rather than blitz through adds to the game's enjoyment. Another interesting point is that players get two different options at the end of each area, and one of those paths might be easier than the other. Players can see how far they traveled by looking at the map after each game over screen, and that map can help players plan out which path to take next time. The graphics hold up well enough for a 1986 game. Even though it is an old game, it looks colorful and sharp on the Switch, at least for a title that originally came out in the 1980s. Players can view the game in a full screen as well, or try it in a smaller window. Personally, the game feels better with the gameplay taking up the entire screen, as opposed to seeing a border on both sides. Some of the different areas or environments can look beautiful, even with the limitations of the time period. For example, check out the area with the white mountains in the background and pink and yellow flowers on the sides. Everything just meshes well together color-wise and makes me want to visit all these places. As an added bonus, the driver gets a cute girl to ride with in the passenger seat, which gives the player even more incentive to drive well and not get in any big crashes. After all, this date will not go well if the girl breaks any bones or needs stitches because of a major car crash before the driving journey ends. As for the controls, players need to hold A to go forward. To shift gears from low to high and vice versa, they can press the right shoulder button. The left joystick works fine for moving the car around and avoiding other obstacles. From what I understand, there are other ways to control this game besides the old joystick and button setup, but I have not tested it out any other way. No, playing Outrun on the Switch does not give the exact same experience as using a steering wheel and pedal in an arcade, but it remains a fun time and players are getting a true experience in terms of graphics and sound. The soundtrack is awesome and contains mostly upbeat 80s tunes that keep the player interested as he or she drives through each environment. Some of the tunes on the soundtrack also sound like they belong in a Sonic the Hedgehog game, and that is not a bad observation as most Sonic themes are catchy electronic beats that players remember in their head for a while. Keep in mind that Outrun is designed to suck up quarters, which makes it similar to virtual racing in that fashion. Players won't get too deep of an experience in this game, with the only goal being to keep beating the time limit and experience new places to look at on their way to the endpoint. Nevertheless, Outrun on Switch is worth the money on the eShop, especially if it goes on sale. Don't expect a game that will last 100 hours. Regardless, the game that is there feels well done for an arcade game, and players can expect to enjoy a polished driving experience for their dollars.